Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking on a hidden engineering challenge.
A big one.
It really is. I mean, it's one that costs brands millions, dictates launch timelines, and is far, far more complicated than just making a bottle look good.
Oh, absolutely.
We are diving deep into custom packaging for cosmetics. This is a technical, financial, and regulatory high-wire act. Our mission for you, the listener, is pretty simple. We've dissected the industry guides on cutting-edge packaging solutions, sustainability mandates, and the true cost of brand impact in 2025. We're giving you a strategic shortcut to understanding the essential criteria for every single packaging decision you need to make.
And that shortcut is so critical right now because the whole environment has just shifted dramatically.
How so?
Well, packaging used to be about, product protection and aesthetics. Pretty simple. Now it's a constant battleground where regulatory scrutiny, it just collides violently with soaring consumer expectations.
So packaging decisions are just getting harder.
Infinitely harder. I mean, it's no longer enough to just meet the U.S. FDA's straightforward labeling expectation.
Right, for ingredient disclosure.
Exactly. Now, you have to concurrently satisfy the really stringent safety assessment-heavy requirements of the EU Cosmetics Regulation 1223/2009, and you have to navigate complex waste directives and substance reporting demanded by REACH. It's a global balancing act. The industry consensus captured in the sources is, well, it's blunt.
Go on.
Sustainability is no longer a feature. It is a baseline expectation. Full stop. This means packaging now has to balance performance, compliance, and eco-conscious design, often at the expense of a lower unit cost.
Okay, let's unpack this constant tension. Let's get right down to the fundamentals. Our analysis outlines 6 core criteria that seem to drive every single choice, forcing brands into these informed trade-offs.
Right. You nail one, you often compromise another.
Exactly. So these 6 criteria are, first, cosmetic compatibility, basically. Will the package chemically react with the formula?
Second, regulatory compliance across all your target markets. Third, recyclability end of life. Fourth, the obvious one, cost and lead time. Fifth, manufacturability tooling ease. And finally, barrier properties. Product protection. So if a brand comes to you and says, we need the lowest cost and fastest lead time, which of the other 5 criteria typically takes the hit?
Oh, almost always. It's either the barrier properties or the recyclability.
Why those two?
Because maximum performance protection and simple end-of-life systems, they usually require higher grade materials. And that means higher cost and longer lead times for sourcing. It's a direct trade-off.
Let's start with the materials themselves then, specifically the rigid plastics. This is where that tension between protecting the formula and the harsh reality of the waste stream really comes to life.
Let's begin with polypropylene, or PP. For a lot of brands, it's the workhorse.
The default choice. It really is. It's incredibly compatible with a broad range of cosmetic actives. Think your thick oil and water emulsions, your cream-based products, common lotions, and critically, it has a lower migration risk, meaning the plastic is less likely to, contaminate the product.
And from a cost standpoint, what's the story there?
PP has a huge advantage here. The tooling ecosystem is really mature, it's widely available, and it's very, very easy to injection mold into different shapes. It just minimizes that manufacturability and tooling risk almost instantly.
Okay, but where's the Achilles heel? There has to be one.
There is. It's barrier performance. While it offers good moisture resistance, its oxygen and aroma barriers are only, modest.
It's not for everything.
Not at all. If you have a sensitive product that needs to be airtight or can't lose its fragrance, like a high-end essential oil blend, you may have to use extra coatings or specialized multi-layer systems, which of course hurts its simple recyclability claim.
Okay, now let's compare that to PET, polyethylene terephthalate. This is the one brands choose when they want that shelf visibility, right?
Exactly. PET offers fantastic clarity and stiffness. It's the preferred choice for premium serums where you want that crystal clear visual of the product inside. Performance-wise, it delivers a strong moisture barrier and a pretty satisfactory oxygen barrier for most standard formulations.
And both PT and PP are generally favorable for monomaterial strategies.
They are, because they're so widely accepted in curbside streams. They're kind of the benchmark materials. However, if your active ingredient is extremely sensitive to oxygen, even PT might need a multi-layer construction to ensure product integrity. And that's the moment you start sacrificing your end-of-life simplicity. And this brings us to where the complexity ramps up really fast, peak G. It's popular for specialty items like droppers, caps, certain thick-walled jars.
It looks great.
It looks great. You get great gloss, clarity, and fantastic impact resistance. You get durability and beauty all in one.
So, it's the problem. Sounds perfect.
PT is a copolymer. Think of it as a plastic built from multiple different plastic types all merged together.
Like an alloy.
Exactly like an alloy. That makes it durable and clear, but when it hits the recycling sorting machine, it can't easily be melted down with the pure PT stream. The source material actually calls this a distinct recycling liability. So brands using PTG have to be certain that local facilities can actually handle it if they want to maintain their end-of-life claims.
Wow. That's a perfect example of a technical decision just instantly sabotaging a sustainability claim. But wait, if plastics create so many of these end-of-life headaches, are the traditional materials, like glass and metal, the easy solution?
They certainly solve the compatibility and barrier problems almost instantly. Glass, without a doubt, conveys the highest degree of luxury. It offers exceptional barrier properties, and it's chemically inert.
So zero chemical interaction with the product.
Virtually zero.
But what are the big trade-offs besides, brittleness?
The cost. It's all about the cost. Higher material cost and significantly higher shipping costs just due to the weight.
And yes, that brittleness risk requires more robust secondary packaging, which means more material input overall. And crucially, what we learned is that the color of the glass isn't just an aesthetic choice.
Absolutely not. For that product protection criteria, the color is paramount. Amber glass is critical for protecting light-sensitive formulations, which are often the most expensive actives.
Like vitamin C serums.
Exactly. Think concentrated vitamin C serums or retinol blends. Clear glass, well, it showcases the product beautifully, but it offers minimal UV protection, leaving those sensitive formulas totally vulnerable to photodegradation.
Okay, moving to metal, specifically aluminum. We see this a lot for aerosols, fragrances, or highly potent active containers.
And for good reason. Metal provides exceptional barrier protection, particularly against moisture and gas, and it's highly recyclable. But the challenge here is compatibility. You can't just put product directly against aluminum. You have to select coatings and liners very carefully. We've seen issues where the wrong liner might prevent tinting, but it could impart off notes, especially in high fragrance systems.
So once the main container material is chosen, we then move to the closure system, where brand recognition often meets disposal frustration.
That's the interface the consumer touches every single day. Closures and applicators are functional. Yes, they dictate dosing and the user experience, but they are the components that most influence those end-of-life outcomes.
And the biggest headaches seem to be with the components that make life easy for us as consumers. Pumps and droppers.
They are the biggest recycling offenders, hands down. Pumps are essential for consistent dosing, but they're notorious because they involve so many mixed materials.
Like what?
Typically multiple plastics, a metal spring, and sometimes even a tiny glass ball. This complexity makes end-of-life recycling extremely challenging unless the brand sources specialized, verifiable monomaterial pump alternatives.
What about droppers then? They seem simpler. They're ideal for precise dosage of serums and oils.
They require just as much care. While they seem simple, the components, specifically the bulb material and the neck seal, have to be rigorously validated. If the bulb material, often a synthetic rubber, interacts with the product's base oils, it can actually alter the product's viscosity, texture, or even its flavor over time. That's a critical failure of the cosmetic compatibility criteria.
It sounds like every time a designer chooses a functional component, they're basically signing up for a massive technical validation headache.
That's the trade-off. It's convenience and dosing accuracy versus simplicity and recyclability.
And now we get to the visual punch. The finishes, the printing, the foil, everything that elevates the perceived value and brand recognition.
These techniques are branding gold, absolutely,
Right.
but they instantly complicate the manufacturability and recyclability criteria. Let's just look at the two main foil techniques, cold foil and hot stamping.
What's the practical difference between those? And why should a brand manager care beyond aesthetics?
So, cold foil uses specialized adhesives to get these high-contrast metallic accents with minimal heat input, making it perfectly suited for those thinner-walled plastic containers.
Okay.
Hot stamping, on the other hand, uses heat and pressure to achieve those elegant accents, which means it performs better on heat-resistant materials like glass or metal. The recyclability issue here is subtle, but it is crucial. The foil coating has to be compatible with the base substrate. If it acts like an unwanted laminate that can't be easily separated during recycling, it contaminates the entire stream. Designers have to favor foil as an embellishment only on verifiable monomaterial items to keep that clean end-of-life profile.
And what about those high-end coatings we love to touch, like the matte and soft touch finishes? The ones that feel so luxurious they can actually hinder the recycling process.
Yes, they absolutely deliver that premium tactility, but they can act like a contaminant layer. Think of it like putting duct tape on a piece of paper you want to recycle. The machines just struggle to separate it cleanly. If the coating requires specialized removal that isn't standard in the waste stream, it just defeats the purpose of choosing a recyclable container in the first place.
This level of detail and material choice brings us right to the strategic landscape. We've established that regulatory compliance is the, quote, non-negotiable foundation. So let's spend a moment on the actionable implications of that regulatory environment.
The regulatory mandates aren't just filing requirements, they're supply chain influencers.
Yeah.
The US FDA focuses on clear, honest ingredient disclosures and safety claims. The EU 12-2002-3-2009, on the other hand, demands incredibly stringent safety assessments and formal product notification schemes.
A lot more paperwork.
So much more documentation proving safety across the entire product lifecycle. But the mandate that's actively punishing complexity is RE-Siege and the packaging waste directives. This pushes brands toward waste minimization and clear substance reporting. Essentially, the more substances you include, more inks, more coatings, more plastic types, the greater the administrative burden. It creates a complexity tax that pushes everyone towards simpler designs.
So how are cutting-edge brands strategizing to survive this complexity tax while still maintaining a sense of luxury? We're seeing three main trends emerging from the source material.
The first, as we mentioned, is monomaterial packaging. This is the easiest way to streamline everything. It gives you higher recyclability rates, and it drastically simplifies regulatory reviews.
Fewer substances to report.
Exactly.
Second, we're seeing solutions that tackle the sheer volume of waste.
That's refillable systems. These are phenomenal for reinforcing consumer value and lowering overall waste. But, and this is a big but, they introduce a huge QA burden. The components have to be incredibly durable, and you need rigorous quality control to ensure the seals hold up across repeated cycles. The container has to be engineered to last for years, not just months.
And the third strategy is pure technical efficiency, encapsulated by DFM.
Right, DFM, or design for manufacturability. This is all about optimizing the design specifically to reduce cost and accelerate production. It means emphasizing standard tolerances and uniform wall thickness.
Why does uniform wall thickness matter so much?
Because uneven walls can lead to warping, failure, and high scrap rates during injection molding, a serious risk to production stability and your cost management. DFM just minimizes those failure points from the very beginning.
But the most efficient design in the world means nothing if the product is ruined by chemical interaction. What essential quality assurance or QA testing did the sources highlight as absolutely non-negotiable?
This is where brand disasters are avoided. Beyond the basic function tests, two specific types are crucial. First is migration testing. This ensures that the packaging components, the materials, the inks, the adhesives will not leach into or contaminate the product. We saw one case study of a brand that skipped this for a dark purple coating.
Oh, no.
Only to find the active ingredient was completely neutralized by the ink compound 6 months later. That is the real cost of skipping QA. Second, you have to perform leak and drop tests under simulated stress. You have to verify the integrity of the seals and the robustness of the structure under conditions that simulate real-world handling and shipping. You are testing for package failure before it gets to the consumer.
Let's put this all together with that case study you mentioned, the one about the prestige skincare line. How did they manage to synthesize all these conflicting criteria?
It was a very smart move. They migrated their packaging to a mono-material system, I believe it was PP or PT, and they paired it with matte finishes and subtle embossing. Their goal was to convey luxury through tactile finishes, appealing to the consumer that way.
And what was the strategic outcome?
Well, they enhanced their shelf presence while streamlining their regulatory compliance. They did it by avoiding those complex, multi-layer laminates and exotic, high-risk finishes that require constant, complex testing and reporting. It's proof that sustainability and luxury can align, but only through informed material selection and simplification.
So what does this all mean for you, the brand owner or the product manager listening to this? What's the core conclusion we've reached?
The core conclusion is that customization today is an informed trade-off. It's a constant, detailed balancing act between strict regulatory adherence, providing superior product protection, and consciously choosing a clear, sustainable end-of-life pathway. The days of treating packaging as a purely aesthetic, marketing afterthought, they're definitively over. Brands must integrate DFM and rigorous QA planning extremely early in the design cycle.
And when you're navigating those strategic choices, that speed to market versus bespoke design challenge really comes into play, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We see a huge distinction between private label and custom branded packaging here. Private label solutions offer speed and scalability because they leverage standardized, pre-documented, well-tested components. Custom branded packaging, on the other hand, demands rigorous, advanced testing, complex color matching, finish validation, custom tooling to maintain that unique luxury aesthetic. You pay for that bespoke design, not just in tooling costs, but in time and regulatory complexity.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. The entire industry is emphasizing the need for efficiency, manufacturability, and speed to market. Considering the high costs and the incredible complexity of custom tooling, unique structural design, and specialized textured finishes, where is a realistic tipping point? Where does a brand's investment in a unique, aesthetically complicated design actually start to undermine the fundamental goal of manufacturing efficiency and simple, cost-effective recycling?
In a world where simplicity increasingly equals sustainability, that question really defines success.
We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.